Tesla stock down another 4+ percentage points here today. Alibaba down another 4 percentage points here today. Nvidia down over 3 percentage points here today. The stock has dropped about 7.5% just in the past 5 trading days. Adobe stock is down about 10% after hours. Right now, there's about $25 billion in market cap lost on Adobe stock. Now, I told you guys they're going to find a reason or reasons to crash some stocks. Right? And sure enough, they have some reasons. So we're going to discuss that here today. We're going to discuss what they've found to push certain stocks down in this market and how this is going to shake up things from here, how it's going to change your portfolio, what to not do in this market, and those sorts of things. So we're going to get into all that. But before we get into that, let me just say this, okay? In these sorts of markets, keep this in mind. This is huge buying opportunities. When they find these reasons, which all these reasons we're going to go through here today that they have now found that they're going to be using here for this next bit of time, this is going to go away. It's going to eventually evaporate, and then people are going to forget it ever even happened, okay? So each time period you get one of these, it's huge buying opportunities in great companies. Don't let them steal your shares when you're going through one of these time periods. Also, do not let them trick you into thinking you are going to magically know how to time the market and get in and get out of these positions all the time. You're going to be able to do that month after month, year after year. Okay, that's very unrealistic. Listen to all the greatest investors in history. They're going to tell you you don't play that game. Okay, don't let them steal your shares of great companies during these periods, and don't let them trick you into a false thought process of thinking you can now time the market and get in and get out of all these positions and things like that. Trust me on that, okay? So I want to say that first and foremost. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Got a lot to go through in this one. All I ask in return, smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed here to the channel. That's all I ask. Smash a like, make sure you're subscribed. If you're looking to apply to join my private group, that will be the pinned comment down there to apply to join us in there, okay? So, I'm sure you guys have heard this TikTok situation, right? House passes bill to force TikTok sale from Chinese owner or ban the app. Now, this is not a done deal. We'll see where this goes from here. This is certainly no done deal in terms of, it's going to be this way or that way yet. It could get to that point, but it's not quite there yet. Now, this is where the situation starts in terms of trying to freak people out. Because what's happening now from here has way bigger ramifications of just some TikTok app and what might be banned or not. This is way bigger implications of that. Here's where things get crazy, okay? Listen, U.S. companies, there's a ton of them out there that are very big companies, that are very big weights in the stock market in general. They do business in China. Not every single one of them. Microsoft doesn't have a massive business in China. Meta has basically non-existent business in China, right? Google has basically non-existent business in China. So there's certain companies that are very large companies that don't have basically any presence in China or very minuscule presence in China. Amazon's another one, right? But there's other companies that are let's call it China's a very important market for them. Companies like Apple come to mind, companies like Tesla come to mind, companies like McDonald's come to mind, companies like Starbucks, right? You can go through a whole list of companies that are massive market caps that if China and the U.S. have more problems here, it's going to create potentially more retaliation from the Chinese side, which could create more problems then for American companies. In some of these companies are huge stocks, right? Also, simultaneously, if you're talking about another ramp up, and let's call it things are not healing in regards to U.S. and China, then you could talk about Chinese stocks are still being in the gutter, essentially, and no one will want to own those, right? And it was looking like things are going to get better, but now with this whole TikTok situation also thrown in there, now it's got a lot of question marks, right? Now, this is where things come into play with Tesla, right? Tesla's down over 35 percentage points year to date. And there's a whole multitude of reasons on why Tesla stock has dropped 35% to start this year. But one of many reasons is around demand, right? And specifically in China. So China, the market's highly competitive, but there's a fear that, okay, let's say TikTok gets banned in the United States. Who's to say China's not going to all of a sudden say Tesla has to sell their business to somebody else, or Tesla's not allowed to operate there, or something like that, right? And that might be a very far-fetched reality that some people are thinking, right? But it is something people are considering. And when you look at Tesla, they have production for nearly 1 million vehicles a year out of the Shanghai facilities. Those facilities, they've built those over the past 5 years, and those facilities are epic. And they're the most important facilities, to be quite frank, for the company overall. And so if there's a fear about, something happening here, then all of a sudden people get very concerned about Tesla stock because they're like, wait, if China does something here, a huge, huge part of Tesla's business goes away overnight, right? Now, what are the odds or probabilities that I see China going after Tesla? I think the odds on that, I live in Vegas, we put odds on everything. I think the odds on that would be about 15%. It is a possibility, and it's something that as a Tesla shareholder you have to be aware of, right? But the one thing I'll say is Elon Musk has a great relationship with a lot of very important Chinese officials, and they have a tremendous amount of respect for Elon Musk in China. I would say Elon Musk is a top 5 most respected person that lives in the United States in China. I think he's top 5. I cannot think of 5 other people that the high-ranking officials in China respect more than Elon Musk, okay? He has a tremendous amount of respect. So I would say them coming after Tesla in any sort of big way would be, that would be like, final stages type stuff. So I wouldn't say that's very high probability. And we know Elon Musk has a lot of respect for China, and he has a lot of respect for the competitors in China, right? In the latest conference call, Tesla CEO Elon Musk says Chinese EV firms will demolish rivals without trade barriers. Chinese car companies were the most competitive, that's Elon Musk quote, and will have significant success outside of China depending upon what kind of tariffs and trade barriers are established, Musk said on the conference call. If there are no trade barriers established, there will be plenty, they'll pretty much demolish most other car companies in the world. They're extremely good, he says. And no doubt about that. I have no doubts in regards to that. All these other auto manufacturers would be absolutely decimated if the Chinese companies, because, people want to compare these Chinese companies to other foreign companies like Volkswagen or Toyota. No. Listen to Elon Musk. This man's actually in the market. He actually competes with these guys. He's saying, no, Toyota, Volkswagen, Ford, GM, all these other guys, cake, okay? The Chinese car companies, that's a whole different ballgame there, right? And you can see what happens when you compete with the Chinese companies. Iron sharpens iron, right? That's a great saying. Iron sharpens iron. And you look at Tesla, they got the number 1 selling vehicle in the world in 2023, right? They go head to head with these Chinese companies on a daily basis. So, them competing in other markets, that's all cake for them. And they already compete with the granddaddies, right? Model Y, look at this. I mean, I can see why it's selling so insane, right? It's the best value in the world by far. I mean, just ridiculous that you get that sort of vehicle for that price. Crazy. So in regards to Tesla stock specific, right? Stock down 35% this year. Listen, here's the facts. Number 1 selling vehicle in the world, right? They got the most hyped and talked about vehicle in history that is ramping right now in Cybertruck, right? That we don't even know. We don't have any clue or conception on where the top is for Cybertruck. We don't know if that's going to top out at 200,000 units a year, 400,000, 600,000, 800,000, a million. We have no clue. We just know it's going to ramp for years to go in the future. That's all we know, right? That's happening right now. Right now. We know Tesla's got countless products in the pipeline. We know margins are likely bottoming right now or close to bottoming, right? But none of that matters right now. We're in a fear cycle around this that's getting everybody to sell all their shares, right? And remember, I always say this to guys, it's very important everybody remembers what I'm about to say right now, okay? Listen, every share that's sold, somebody's on the other side buying those shares. They don't just evaporate or something. For every time there's a seller, there's a buyer. I have shares personally of Metastock that people sold to me for $88.94. I have ELF shares I hold today. That stock's $200 that people sold to me for $7 and change. $7 and change, and that stock's $200 today, okay? So there's always somebody on the other side that's just gobbling up the shares. It's like, gimme, 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 right? So let's say some fund manager went ahead and liquidated his whole position of Tesla yesterday or today or whatever, right? Somebody's on that other side scooping up all those Tesla shares at $160 something a share, right? And is like, I'm glad to get these shares. Thank you so much for these. I appreciate your donation, right? So that's just a little food for thought in regards to that whole situation. So everybody can get caught up in these short-term things, but there's a lot of other short-term things that are actually going on that are very good, and the long-term things that are adding up significantly here, right? So just a little food for thought in regards to that. Now, NVIDIA, right? Oh, China worries. Okay, TikTok gets banned, retaliation. Oh, then the U.S. won't allow NVIDIA to sell chips to them and keep trying to, create these problems for them selling chips. Well, listen, that's already been an issue, and NVIDIA's put up ridiculous numbers regardless of all these. You can't sell your AI chips to China. You need to change all stuff. NVIDIA's already been dealing with that, and look at the numbers for NVIDIA. They're astronomically high, right? But the bottom line is Wall Street wants this stock bad. The stock's been way too hot. It's already climbed 78% this year, right? They need to get as many weak hands to sell NVIDIA stock as they possibly can before the big event next week. It's a big event coming up, and there's about to be another hype cycle in NVIDIA stock and excitement, and they need people to sell before this event. So how you can do that is you can talk about China worries, the TikTok, that might get banned. Oh boy, you got to worry about this. Oh, NVIDIA, they might not be able to sell AI chips into China anytime soon. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just something to scare people. If it wasn't this, it would use something else. It's just you got to find something to freak everybody out, right? And meanwhile, NVIDIA's got their big event coming up next week. It's March 18th through the 22nd. NVIDIA is going to be all the talk of the market next week, and NVIDIA is going to have all types of new chips to show off, all types of new partnerships to announce. They're going to have new software things they're going to launch or show off or talk about monetization on the software side. People are going to get all hyped about this. Analysts are going to come out upgrading NVIDIA left and right, talking about how this new product's going to generate this much in this year and blah, blah, blah. And oh my gosh, all of a sudden NVIDIA stock's going to be $1,000 plus, and everybody's going to be looking around and saying, whoa, what happened? I thought NVIDIA was going to 700. Why is everybody else buying this stock again? And people are going to be so confused. What happened? What happened, right? You get the weak hands to shake out of that, right? You at the end of the day, just look at this. Right? This is a year to date for NVIDIA stock. Every single dip in this stock has just been a buying opportunity. And every single dip, they buy it right up, right? And they buy it up quick too. They don't let it dip for long. I mean, you might get a 2-week dip in this baby and then it's bought right up, right? And so NVIDIA, anytime this stock dips and they're getting it to dip here in the short term, they're going to buy it right back up next week. And next thing you know, it's going to be at a new all-time high. Then it's going to be at 1,000 plus, right? And these are not things, by the way, I'm interested in playing short-term call options on. No. I'm not going to play that silly game. I'm just telling you what the likely probability is in this situation. They're going to, have the stock dip, have the weak hands sell, and then be right there to pick up all the shares. And next thing you know, the stock's going to have a 1 in front of it. And people are going to be like, what happened? Oh my gosh, everybody was selling last week and now everybody wants in this stock. It happens, right? Now, this is Adobe. So we spoke about Adobe stock. It's crashing about $25 billion of market capitalization after hours, right? I looked at their income statement here, and it's a B+. It's a B+ income statement. The subscription revenue looks good, $4.9 billion versus $4.3. If you look at total revenue, about almost $5.2 billion versus $4.6 in the same quarter last year. Gross profits up to $4.5 billion versus $4. Now, they had this acquisition termination fee of $1 billion. That's for that Figma failed deal that didn't go through, the Figma deal. So that's a one-off cost, so that made obviously their net income and EPS look way worse than it really should have been. But you take away that $1 billion one-off there, and basically net income would have been $1.6 billion plus, right? Or somewhere around there roughly. So overall, if it wasn't for that one-off, this would have been a grade A income statement for Adobe overall. But Adobe, there's reasons to be fearful, right? And they're definitely creating some fear out there. And it's around OpenAI. You've seen articles like this recently. OpenAI's DALL-E sent a shockwave of panic through Adobe. Oh my gosh, what happened here, right? And then you got Sora, which is an AI model that can create realistic and imaginative images from text instructions. Oh my gosh. And so, I don't know what happens here with Adobe, but there's real fear around Adobe right now. And when I say real fear, we'll see if it ends up adding up to the numbers, but it doesn't matter at the moment. All that matters is a fear around that. And whether this is something that hurts Adobe's business model or it's actually a growth opportunity, because you got to understand sometimes there's these competing products that come into a market that end up actually helping out a company long term. For instance, TikTok. We talked about TikTok at the top of this video, right? TikTok was seen as a huge competitive threat to Facebook and Instagram. Now it was seen as basically the best thing that ever happened, because that led then Meta to come out with new innovative core products for them that are now making them a fortune and are going to make them so much money over the coming years, such as Instagram Reels, right? And so this could be a story where it's like, oh wow, it's seen as scary, new competitive threat for Adobe, but maybe this ends up actually just making Adobe a fortune long term because it just opens up new markets and new opportunities to push Adobe forward, right? But it's seen as kind of like the opposite of a Palantir situation, where Palantir, oh, AI, this is great. This is going to open up so many new opportunities. AIP, oh my gosh, now we can show a customer what we can do in a matter of hours instead of months, right? And Palantir has benefited massively from that and will benefit crazy for the coming years. Adobe is seen as a situation where it's complete opposite. Google, same exact situation in regards to kind of an Adobe situation, right? It's going through the same thing that Adobe is, whereas that stock's down 2% in the past month, despite NASDAQ doing very well and a lot of its peers doing very well, including Meta, right? But there's fear about about Google, basically being caught off sides on LLMs and AI in general, and it's going to disrupt their business model. And maybe it comes true, or maybe it's not. Maybe this is just another FUD thing out there, right? Another death of, the big dog companies, and at the end of the day, it just creates even a bigger opportunity for these guys. We don't know as of right now, but all that matters in the short term is the fear, right? Fear wins. Fear always wins out in the short term, and that's what you have to understand as an investor. Fear always wins out in the short term. Fundamentals always win out in the long term. So if we think about a stock like Tesla, everybody freaking out, right? That's all driven by fear in the short term. But at the end of the day, where Tesla's stock price is 5 years from now will 100% depend on the fundamentals. The fundamentals of the company, where that company's revenues, net income, EPS go over the next 5 years, right? But in the short term, fear wins out. It's human nature. Humans. They were dealing with humans here. It's fear. You can freak people out very easily. It's not complicated. The government does it all the time. Excuse me. Excuse me about that. But I mean, that's cake. That's cake. You got to understand that as an investor on how easily you can be manipulated certain ways, right? You look at the NASDAQ over time, and there's so many things to always worry about, so many things to freak out about. I mean, shoot, since I came in this world in 1989, every single dip has been a buying opportunity. And despite a million things to worry about and a million crashes, every dip has been a huge buying opportunity, right? And you could have found a million reasons to sell over time. You could have sold in 2001. Oh my gosh, tech stocks are ruined. Look at how much the NASDAQ crashed. You could have, chose not to buy. You could have chose not to buy in the great financial crisis. You could have chose not to buy in all these situations. But the thing you got to understand, I mean, even here, this crash was crazy. I don't think a lot of people have fathomed how crazy the 2022 crash was. I don't think that's really set into people yet on how epic that crash was. That crash was bigger in terms of a point basis drop than the tech bubble crash was. Think about that for a moment. Let that sink in. It was bigger than the entire NASDAQ in the tech bubble crash. That's wild when you think about that, right? And so, but at the end of the day, all these million things to worry about, great financial crisis, unemployment super high, Rona, once in 100-year, blah, 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 is all a huge buying opportunity every single time. And yet weak hands chose to sell in those time periods, and they sold to somebody that was on the other side that was a very willing buyer, right? And then they chose not to buy, those same people that sold, right? And at the end of the day, what do you have to say for yourself other than like, dang, messed up, missed it, right? And the same could be said for great companies, right? Great companies that are truly innovative, keep pushing forward and forward and forward and keep coming out with great products and services, right? These sorts of companies, every dip you get in these stocks is a buy, right? Tesla's a great example. Tesla stock, despite everything that's gone through over the past 3 years, the stock is up 12,700% since IPO, right? You got people like myself that are still up, 500% or so, even after this massive crash we've had to go through in Tesla stock, we're still so far in the green, it's ridiculous, right? And so people will choose not to buy Tesla stock in this. And then my guess is 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, they're going to look back at 2024 and they're going to say, and 2022 as well, and they're going to say, why wasn't I buying Tesla stock? I probably should have. And that will happen in likely 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now. People are going to look back and be like, gosh, I should have been buying. Like I let everybody freak me out over what the quarterly numbers were going to be for that one quarter back in Q1 in 2024 and what the margins were going to be. And remember they were going to ban the TikTok, and remember I was scared like China was going to ban Tesla. I mean, everything's possibility, but you got to, sometimes you got to take a step back and zoom out a little bit and think about like in a few years from now, you really, you really got to just think about like you in the future in like 3 years from now and like think about like, are the things you're thinking about just like flat out silly, right? It might seem so real in the moment, but it might end up being silly. It's kind of like you as a kid, maybe you're worried about there was monsters under your bed, right? Guess what? There was never a freaking monster under your bed. But you're worried about it every night. Oh gosh, there's a monster under my bed. Holy smokers, that's no jokers, right? Nvidia, this stock is up 200,000 plus percent since its IPO. Every dip in Nvidia has been a buy over the years, right? And every chip worry and they're not using NVIDIA chips to mine any crypto anymore. And, the gaming market's soft right now. And all the million things that you had to worry about in NVIDIA over time. And at the end of the day, every single dip in that stock's ever been a buy, right? Ever since Shopify went public, every dip in this stock has been a buy. Every crash, it's just all an opportunity. It's all going to be an opportunity over the coming years. Shopify's probably going to be $1 trillion plus company 10 years from now. And people are going to look back and be like, wow, man, every dip on Shopify ever was a buy. And they're going to look at this crash that happened here in 2022. And they're going to say, it's going to end up being like this little thing over time. Remember I showed you the NASDAQ over time, right? This is a tech bubble crash. And now it actually looks like a little something, right? And I think that's how people will look at a crash like what happened in Shopify stock. They'll look back 7-10 years from now and they'll be like, oh, look at that little something that happened there, right? And they won't even remember what happened. But it was actually an epic crash. It just was a huge buying opportunity in the end, right? You look at a stock like Meta, 1,000% plus gainer since IPO. Every dip's been a buy in the stock. And it's very shortly after the IPO, the stock fell 50 plus percent. 50 plus percent the stock fell very shortly after the IPO, right? For a great company. Like, if you understood what was going on there, it was an easy buy the dip opportunity. Netflix, every dip is a buy. There's always drama in regards to Netflix. Oh, they're going to spend a lot this year on shows or they're going to go up on price and some people are going to be mad about that, or password sharing is going to be cut off, or whatever it is. It's always going to be something with Netflix, right? At the end of the day, the stock's up 52,000% since it went public, and every dip in the stock has always been a buy, right? Amazon, same exact thing. Million things to worry about. 146,000% gain since it went public. I mean, heck, look at this. I don't even see the tech bubble crash. Amazon stock fell. Think about this for a moment. Let this sink in. Amazon stock fell over 90% in the tech bubble, peak to trough. I don't even see it on the stock chart now. I don't even see it. And the stock fell over 90%. That's insane to think about that, right? It doesn't even show up. It doesn't even register. I'm guessing the crash was somewhere here, and you don't even see it, right? Apple, as much hate as they get, and some of it deserved. I mean, at the end of the day, every dang dip in the stock has always been a buy. It's up 134,000%. And, Yeah, Apple goes through their tough time periods and, this can't grow or this margin's not hitting or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, every flip and flapjack and dip has really been a buy in Apple stock over time, right? Microsoft, same exact thing, 437,000% gainer since IPO. And I mean, it's gone through a lot of drama. It went through the tech bubble. It went through the great financial crisis. It went through Steve Ballmer running the company for like 10 plus years. Went through all that. And at the end of the day, every dip in Microsoft's been a buy over time, right? And it's not like it's just tech companies. There's, Elf, for instance, up 2,600%. Every dip in Elf's been a buy. I mean, it's just a great company running on full cylinders. Every dip's a buy in Elf stock, right? Now, in order to find great companies, there's 5 keys, right? You first have to identify that this is like a great business in the making here, right? You have to be able to identify that. From there, you're going to be able to identify the financial reports in that those financial reports are going to be able to shape up great, meaning that net income is going to be able to be explosive to the upside. That net income can grow at a much faster rate than the revenues can over time. The earnings per share can grow at even a faster clip than net income. You might say, well, how's that possible? I hope you know. Share buybacks, right? So you got to be able to identify all those sorts of things. Then you got to be able to run your future projections for the likely probabilities that a company hits certain numbers over the coming years. You got to be able to run 5 different projections: an ultra bearish case, a bearish case, a base case, a bullish case, and an ultra bullish case. You got to be able to run those so you can understand the risk you're willing to take in that stock, right? And understand what the probabilities are on kind of this upside versus that upside versus this downside, right? You got to be able to identify the moat, or if the company has a moat, and if they do have a moat, what type of moat is that and how's it compete against other companies? And then the 5th thing is you got to be able to identify if you're getting a great deal on that or if you're getting ripped off, right? I look at myself, I identified that I was getting a great deal in ELF and I was willing to take that risk, even though I understood there was potential downside. Same thing with Tesla. Tesla's sitting on, even after this crash, a 500% gain or so. And so I'm able to look at a Tesla and I was able to identify that I'm getting a great deal in this stock because I was able to run the future projections on where that company was likely going, right? And those are very important things. Now, if you need help understanding how to do all that I just ran you through, I've been able to help a lot of people over time. So check out the pinned comment down there, apply, join private group. I teach you all that type of stuff. And, the results speak for themselves. The amount of people we've had go through the program and end up reaching 6 figures, multi-6 figures, 7 figures, multi-7 figures. It's a long list of folks. It's a long dang list of folks. So anyways, that's pinned comment down there if you need help with any of that. Don't let them steal your shares. Buy the dip. Never trip. Much love and have a great day.